Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Ryan Richards, a residential loan officer and real estate investor based out of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Today I'm bringing a solo episode talking through what I would do if I were going to get started in real estate investing today. So if you're someone who's interested in getting started but don't know where to begin, then this is the perfect episode for you. So I've been getting asked this question a lot. I want to get started in real estate investing, but where do I begin? Is it still a good time to invest in real estate? Does the market make sense? Do the numbers make sense? And I think to answer that question, you have to figure out first what you want out of real estate investing. Because every client, every person has different goals and objectives that change the strategy as to what types of investments make sense, what types of areas make sense for what they're looking for. Now, if you're someone who is, let's say, doesn't own a house currently, and you're looking to just get started with your first multifamily, I think living in the property is the ultimate advantage because number one, it gives you access to low down payment options. So you can put 3.5% or 5% down to buy a $500,000 property. So it allows you to minimize your cash investment while you're living in the property. But it also gives you the ability to get hands-on management experience by being present at the property. So you'll be able to learn the systems, learn the mechanicals of the property, deal with your tenants on a day-to-day basis, and be present for a lot of the operations that ultimately you have to systematize as you start buying properties where you don't live. So it gives you the chance to build out your vendor list, find your preferred plumbers, talk with them on site about the issues. You get to learn a lot about how things work, why things break, and how to fix them and prevent them in the future. So those types of conversations are a lot easier when you're present on the property. Obviously, if you're there, you're living there full time, you're able to deal with maintenance items a lot easier and quicker than you would if you had to drive 30, 45 minutes to your property, which there's ways to optimize that system, which I've talked about in previous episodes and we'll talk about more in the future. But to get started, living in the property gives you some serious advantages. Where this strategy begins to really propel your real estate investing journey is what steps you take with that first property. So what a lot of my clients do and a lot of the conversation we have on the podcast is figuring out, number one, what effort are you willing to put into this investment? Because real estate is often not passive. Unless you buy a brand new move-in ready property that was just built, there's going to be items that need updating, items that need repair, and parts of the property that you'll just want to improve to get top dollar rent. Now, if you're someone who doesn't want to do those things, well, maybe you do look at a property that's more move-in ready. But the advantage of looking at a property that needs some TLC, needs a little bit of work, is you're able to drive up the value of the property by putting in some of that sweat, especially if you're someone who's handy. You're able to take on a lot of the smaller tasks throughout the property that are really impactful to the value that helps set you up for this plan. So if I was someone in that position where I'm handy or I have friends who are handy, I have maybe your father's a contractor, contractors, then what I would do is I would find a 2-family property that is in a good location with the right bedroom bathroom count. Ideally for me, I like 2 bedrooms. I think they rent more easily than 3s and 4s, and they're a little bit less prone to turnover as 1 bedrooms are. 1 bedrooms are typically more transitional. But find that property. Now, what you want to look for in the property is a property that has really good bones, but could benefit quite a bit from a facelift. When I say facelift, I'm talking about the cosmetics. Can you improve the kitchen? Can you renovate the bathrooms? Would paint go a long way? What about refinishing the floors? This is not gutting an entire building or replacing boilers, furnaces, and other mechanicals. This is a property that has really good bones and just needs a little bit of love. Because what you're able to do is you can, again, buy that property with a very minimal down payment, Let's use some real numbers, for example. Let's say you buy a two-family for $500,000. Well, if you put 5% as your down payment, that's $25,000. Assuming leaving closing costs out of this, let's say you get the seller to cover those closing costs as part of your offer. You negotiate a seller credit, they cover all of your closing costs. So you only need $25,000 to buy the property. Let's say over the course of the next 6, 12 to 18 months, you renovate your unit. So maybe you paint the entire unit, you replace some of the kitchen cabinets, upgrade the bathroom. That starts to increase the value of the property. So as you live in your unit over the first 6 to 12 months, you complete those renovations. Now you can move into the other unit and do the same thing. But because you improved the unit you were just living in, now you can get a top dollar rent. Once you complete the second renovation in the other unit, ideally, if you're doing some of this work yourself, you're able to cut the cost significantly of the renovation and increase the value. Now, where this really starts to compound is how you can take advantage of that work you just put into the property. And I have clients do this all the time. It's actually something I'm doing right now on my two-family property. Because you're living in the property, you get access to a lot more flexible financing options. So what you can do under that example, let's say you bought it for $500. Over the course of 12 to 18 months, you put about $50,000 worth of your own funds into the property to renovate, but you made it a lot nicer. Well, now let's say that property appraises for $600,000. You made the property a lot nicer. You have good tenants and strong rent. Obviously, from the market's perspective, that's more valuable than a property that has all of those things still left to do. So you put in some work, you increase the value. Now, what can you do with that equity? Well, there are mortgage products, home equity lines of credit, that allow you to access 100% of your home's value in terms of equity. So in that example, you bought it for $500, you put $25,000 down. So you borrowed $475,000. Well, now that you, again, live in the property, you put the work in, it's worth $600. You can take out an equity line of credit for the difference between $475,000 and $600,000. So you can take out $125,000 in an equity line of credit. Now we just said you spent $25,000 for the down payment, $50,000 in renovations. So you spent $75,000, not counting carrying costs and things like that. Now you can access $125,000 in equity. Well, what can you do with that? That becomes the down payment and the renovation for the next property. So you can move out of your two-family and go do this again with a 2, 3, or 4 unit property. And that's where this equity snowball starts to really take effect, because if you did that on the next property, say you bought another two-family for $500,000, you put another $50,000 worth of work in, you get access to another $125,000 in equity. You just spent $75,000 one time to now have access to $250,000 in equity. So you can start to see the more that you replicate this model, the more capital you're going to have access to. Now, obviously, this assumes you got a good deal on the property. The work you're putting into the property is actually increasing the value so you can access that equity. That's really important to this equation. As I mentioned in the beginning, the property you're looking for, you want it to be cosmetically deficient, not mechanically and structurally deficient. If you go into a house and you redo the foundation, that doesn't really add a lot of value to the next buyer, because when anyone buys a property, they're already expecting the foundation to be stable, structurally sound, and in working order. So those types of renovations, as much as you're improving the property, you're not really increasing the value. So you want to focus on properties that have good bones, but just need cosmetic updating. Think paint, kitchens, bathrooms, and things of that nature. When you're identifying these opportunities, keep in mind that multifamily properties and properties in general, there's more value put towards certain characteristics of the property than others. For example, if you have a property that's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, well, is there a way throughout the course of your renovations you can add another bedroom or maybe add a half bathroom? These types of improvements are what you want to start to look for. So hopefully that helps you to start to get your wheels turning on some opportunities. It doesn't take a lot of capital to get started, and if you do things the right way, within just a couple years, you can have a few properties and a few $100,000 in equity to access. So if you have questions about how to get started, how to utilize this strategy, reach out to me. Happy to walk you through it, or send you the link to our upcoming Informed Investor Mastermind. Hope to see you there.